judges have decided on who the next team that will be automatically advancing to the quarterfinals of this competition will be. This debate saw two teams, Knox College facing off against St. Jago High School, right? And the motion before us today read as follows. This House believes that trade unions should prioritize future-oriented benefits such as pensions and training rather than immediate wage increases for their workers. So what did the judges think of the debate? So there were some interesting clashes, and then there were some instances of parallel conversations happening in the debate. So Team Knox College tells us that we need to prioritize future-oriented benefits, and they dialed in their case particularly on pensions. Pension as a mechanism for future-oriented benefits. It's important to note that the debate wasn't about wage increases versus pensions. The debate was about wage increases versus future-oriented benefits, such as pensions. And what we found is that a lot of the arguments that came out against Knox's case were specifically focused on the efficacy of pensions. Now, to St. Jago's credit, that is because a lot of Knox's case was centered around the efficacy of pensions. And so we thought that was a parallel conversation that didn't necessarily engage specifically with the true spirit and ethos of the debate, which is the future benefit in general. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter what the judges wanted. What matters is what the judges had and the debate that took place. So how did the debate shape out? Well, most teams claim inflation. Both teams claim that their distinctive policies are going to cause inflation. See, St. Jago tells us that what happens right now is that inflation exists. We need money right now in order so that the individuals who exist within our society don't starve to death. We get examples that there's this nurse out there whose car isn't working, she can't get to work. There's a teacher who needs money to eat. There's a guy who's about to be evicted from his home and he needs money now. And if he doesn't get money now, then he's going to suffer. And future-oriented benefits, in particular pensions, they don't help that case, right? Now, we wanted to know, separate and apart from these examples that I'm sure exist in society, what is status quo? How bad is it? Is everyone going to be evicted if we don't get the wage increase right now? Where is our economy in a grand scheme, macro level, such that this debate can really be grounded in more than just the examples that we got from St. Jago? We wanted to know that. Nevertheless, we bought it in as much as Knox College tells us that, one, that it isn't as bad as it really is, that most people can pinch and kind of figure out a situation without mechanizing that, right? And so we can't credit that too much, while simultaneously telling us that people are living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so we thought that was a little bit uncertain in the minds of the judges. Truly, where does our society lie right now? Are people starving to death, about to be evicted en masse, or is the average person in a position where they can figure it out and get by? And so that's kind of where it ended. Now, on the question of inflation, where do we get the greatest inflation? Jago tells us that we need the money now in order to cover for inflation, and that what actually is going to happen with these long-term future benefits, in particular pensions, is that by the time we get to the age of maybe 30, 40 years in the future where we can actually access these pensions, it's gone. The pension is gone to inflation, right? But Team Knox tells us that actually no, inflation happens when you have the demand pulled inflation. Team Knox tells us that in as much as you're now going to be consistently and regularly putting more money into the hands of these individuals who, as far as I can tell, are struggling, then what's going to happen is that you're going to have demand pulled inflation. So we got a little bit of understanding about demand pulled inflation earlier on in the debate, but we got a fulsome, comprehensive appreciation of how demand pulled inflation works more in the third speaker from summer. So Summer tells us that when you put money in the economy, that's going to cause a surplus in that economy. That surplus is going to cause something called demand pulled inflation, which is a function of economics, and that it is going to lead to greater inflation. How did the judges shape it out? We think it was all but a tie, with a slight edge coming out for Team St. Jago. We think that the explanation of demand pulled inflation, while helpful, is something that we definitely wanted to know a little bit more earlier than literally the last speech in the debate. We think the benefit of intuitiveness lies with St. Jago in that inflation is something that happens and is calculated yearly by the Bank of Jamaica. And so in the shorter period, we need to be able to address inflation. And in as much as 30, 40 years passes, and we don't understand fully how cumulative or accumulation work, as was explained by the second speaker, and was explained a little bit by Summer, we didn't understand how the pensions are going to beat inflation. Like, are the pensions going to be invested? Are they going to be returning a particular return on investment that beats inflation? Is the pension a fixed figure? You see, you tell us that it's nominal versus real, but I'm not an economist. I'm just a guy who reads a newspaper, who wants to vote and decide based on what you say. So in as much as I don't know how pensions work, in as much as I don't know if a pension is an investment or if it's just a nominal figure I put into the fund and get back what I want, I have to buy to some degree St. Jago's appreciation that it's going to have to suffer from inflation over time. But then when we get into the meat and potatoes of the debate, right? The idea of training came forward from Team Knox, and we think this is a really good idea. The second speaker, Jaden, started to tell us a little bit about the training, but he ran out of time. But what we got from it in the time that was permitted from Jaden is this appreciation that, well, AI and automation and all these things of innovation are coming and existing in status quo, and they're taking our jobs. And if we don't get training and skill, we're not going to have any jobs in the future. And so all these minor increases that we ask for time and time again will mean nothing when we lose our job. We got a little bit more understanding from that out of Summer. We weigh that against the idea of cost baseline. Man, we love this idea. We got this idea from the second speaker, Jana Tomlinson. Jana Tomlinson explained the concept of a cost baseline for us, and we think this was one of the most substantiated claims in the debate. See, this is the last thing I'll speak about before I announce the results, because I know that's what you want. See, Jana tells us that what actually is happening right now is something called a delayed entitlement trap. See, your base salary is super important because your base salary demands how much you get if you get fired in compensation for redundancy. Your base salary determines how much money you get for future jobs. Your base salary tells us how much you get in the same pensions. Your base salary tells us a lot about your worth. And so you are incentivized to have as high a base salary as possible so that you are protected in the future. We thought that was brilliant and the judges loved it. Now, of course, other ideas came up in the debate, such as the decline of trade unions, questions of personal autonomy. The judges spent a very long time assessing how the debate shaped out. And it came down to scoring the debate. Because of the lack of resolution for several clashes, because of a lot of parallel arguments, because of the misconception of the debate, the judges scored the matches based on how we think each speaker performed, taking in consideration everything that we would have talked about before. And ladies and gentlemen, when we take into consideration the speaker scores, when we take into consideration the scores for cross-examination, which one team admittedly did much better than the other team on, and when we take into consideration all of that, the scores ending the round were one team on 275 points, the other team on 270 points. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the team that will win this match and automatically advance to the quarterfinals of this competition is the team in proposition Knox College. Congratulations, Knox College. We want to say, well played, team St. Jago High School. The best debater from this match comes to us from St. Jago High School, actually. And that was the second speaker, Jana Tomlinson. Congratulations, both teams. We invite you to share some words in the spirit of sportsmanship.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a very good debate. Thank you.
Good match, good match. Bless you.
All right. And so, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude all the matches for today. Join us on Thursday at 9 a.m., where we will see two teams vying for one of the few remaining slots in the quarterfinals. Until then, I am Ravon Thomas Matthews, and it has been my pleasure.